Now from KWWL, this is the Steele Report.
And right now, I would like to welcome back, it's always a privilege to have Dave Welter come back to the program. Dave is a well-known retired educator in the Cedar Valley. He was a great baseball coach, a scout for the Atlanta Braves. He's done about everything, cancer survivor. Dave, I was looking back on our previous shows. You first came on to talk about your first book back in the middle of 2017.
Right.
Can you believe that?
It's been a while.
And that was Reflections from the Home Team, Go the Distance. Go the Distance. And now let's take a look at this graphic right now. You have 4 books total. You had the Go the Distance was your number 1, then Staying Positive. That was a show we did, can you believe this was during COVID back in November 15th of 2020. We talked about that. Then you had book number 3, Reframing the Curveball, Life Pitches Our Way. That's an interesting one there for sure. And now, I'm not sure how to take this one. Nearing Home. What are you trying to tell us here? Let's talk a little bit about your own situation, because this all came about because of Dave's battle with cancer, and obviously he is an amazing cancer survivor. What's going on in your life right now? And we'll talk a little bit more about the book in a second, but what's going on personally with you?
Well, first of all, Ron, I'm still vertical, and that's what matters. It's been quite a journey since 2009 when I was diagnosed. One of the things that is important to me is trying to stay positive and encouraging during this time. And I've been up to Mayo Clinic, I've been through Iowa City, I go back for regular checkups. And what's happening in my life right now is I've got some more scheduled here in about a month. And of course, a little bit of anxiety steps in every time you go back, not knowing just what the future will hold. But that's one of the reasons I write, is because it helps me process. And I'm hoping it helps others process who may be feeling some similar situations in their life, whether that be cancer or some other serious challenges they may be facing.
You've always used the baseball metaphors in your books because you were a baseball coach for many years, and obviously you're a great athlete, but I think baseball must be your favorite, the way it looks to me anyway.
Yeah, baseball is, of course, my sport of choice. I've coached a lot of other things as well, but quite honestly, baseball is a game that's not easy, just like life cannot be easy. And I find so many analogies that I use in my writing that I've come across with stories of people that I've run into sitting in the waiting rooms at Mayo Clinic and in Iowa City. And it's just amazing the encouraging things and positive things that I've heard from people that have helped me through. And I'm in turn sharing stories about those for other people as well.
Yeah, that's fantastic. I mean, 4 books now, and like you say, you're still vertical. You're doing well, you look good. You never know what life's going to bring, the kind of curveball that can come your way, but your family has been there with you the whole time. In fact, you just told me one of your sons is going to be a doctor, right? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I've got 3 doctors in the family, actually, so my medical plan is in good shape right now. But yeah, it's amazing how the friends, the acquaintances, and just as importantly, the complete strangers who I've had a chance to meet with in those waiting rooms have helped me through. And I've got an inspiration for this last book from a gentleman that I met up at Mayo Clinic. I was up there, this would have been last January when I started writing the book. And interesting story. And he was a little older than I was. He sitting beside me in the waiting room, going in for his results. And it was interesting because he was a 3-time cancer survivor. And we began talking, and of course one of the topics is, well, what did you do for your living? And he was a basketball coach in South Chicago.
Oh, wow.
And I told him I was there this last fall doing some scouting, and it's an interesting place to be. He said, yeah, I've just loved coaching the kids and teaching, being an educator in that particular part of the city. And he said, I'm of Puerto Rican descent. So of course we started talking baseball, and I said, so who is your favorite baseball player? Like I didn't know. He said, well, Roberto Clemente, yeah, of course. And I said, well, amazing, he's mine too. And the reason I said was because I was a senior in 1972 in high school, right in the middle of my baseball season, when Roberto was flying aid to the earthquake-stricken country of Nicaragua. And he was aware that a lot of the supplies going there were not getting to the people because Somoza was taking them, trying to benefit his group as a dictator. And he said, I need to get on this plane and make sure that those supplies get to where they need to go. He boarded a ramshackle plane, which he filled with supplies in less than 24 hours. And 1,000 feet out into the ocean, the plane crashed. Mm-hmm. They never found his body. And the thing that I remember so much was not only that he was such a great baseball player, but that he was such a caring person. And that's what this gentleman said in our conversation. It came up, what do you want to be remembered for? And I said, talk to me about what you're thinking there. He said, pretty simply, I want to be remembered as someone who cared. Mm-hmm. And I said, you hit that right. He said, it's not about your awards, your trophies, your diplomas, all those things. It's about how much did I care for the people that I've touched in my life. And that really inspired me to sit down on the way home and reflect. Am I doing things? It brought so many other questions into my mind, which I try to deal with in the book. And many of the stories that I share in there are about caring people that have been impacted by a tragedy or serious illness in their life. And the purpose of that is to provide encouragement and positivity, which this gentleman did for me, no question about that. And I try to do, each reflection in the book ends with an encouraging attitude, a spiritual insight, and a step to consider. And I'm trying to help people with some strategies because I got to be honest, not all those conversations have been positive in the waiting rooms. Many people have had extreme anxiety, many stories in the book about that. Others have had, which is just amazing to me, come in with a calmness and a peace, knowing that they've been diagnosed even with terminal cancer. Right. So those are the things that I try to address in the book to provide that encouragement.
So you also have such a religious foundation in your family and in your own personal life. But let's go back to 2017 with the first book. Now you're at book number 4. What has this process, this journey, taught you about life?
The interesting point there, Ron, is this. I tried to analyze, that's me, I analyze, I'm a retired principal. But the people that had such extreme anxiety when they were given their diagnosis versus those that had a calm and a peace, there was such a difference there. And I asked some people, why are you so calm knowing that you've, well, one lady in particular had both legs amputated. Wow. She was sitting there in her wheelchair with 3 children, 2 on her lap, and her husband behind her. I said, why? How can you be so calm? You just lost both your legs. She said, I'll tell you why. First of all, I have a God that cares about me and loves me. I have a loving husband. I have 3 beautiful children. I'm still here, and I know the Lord's going to take care of me. And for a person who had just lost both legs to cancer, being that positive made such an impact on me. And an interesting part of that story was sitting to my left was a convict in a wheelchair, shackled hands, shackled feet. And he was listening to the conversation this young lady and I were having. And it wound up being a point of, he said, you know, you both have had somebody that's cared for you. Nobody's cared about me, and that's why I'm here, because I turned to drugs and alcohol, and that's why I've got terminal liver cancer. And I said, you know, it's interesting. There is somebody that cares about you. And he said, well, if you're talking about that Bible thing, I don't buy into that. And I said, no, I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about you just need to know there is somebody that cares about you, and it's your Lord and Savior. And the deputy then, he had to go in for his treatment. And as he wheeled this gentleman by, the guy said, I heard you're a principal. He said, when you go back, would you please tell your kids not to do the dumb stuff that I did? And he didn't use the word stuff. But I said, I'll absolutely do that. And the deputy winked at me and he said, you know, I'll get him a copy of the book.
That's great,
So,
that's great, yeah. Dave, before we go any further, what's the best way to get a hold of your book? How can people find it? All four of them, actually, yeah.
Well, the book, I have my website, reflectionsfromthehometeam.com. And if you're interested, click on that site and I will get you a signed, autographed version of the book. I really try to personalize it for every situation, and that's important to me. It's also available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, TJ's Christian Bookstore here in our community, and also Zulon Press. So
it's interesting how many lives you touch. It's a Wonderful Life was just on recently for the holidays, of course, and I always watch that with my family. And it is interesting how many people you meet in the course of your life and the twists and turns. I'm one of those that every little turn means my destiny has been altered ever so slightly. If I went left or went right, or if I was late or early. Do you feel that way in your life? And being in the right place, timing is just about everything, isn't it?
it is. It absolutely is. And you know, the interesting part about that, Ron, is we may never know the impact we've had on people until we get to the other side of heaven, you know, and that's okay. Sometimes it's best we don't know. But I've had so many of my former students have reached out to me, wishing me well, and I've done the same thing with them, watching them grow and mature and develop. And it's amazing the wonderful things that these kids have done over the years. I feel blessed to have them in my life. My staff, my students, my family, they've all been a part of what I call my home team. And I think everybody needs a home team to lean on when you face life's challenges.
Thus, the reflections from the home team, and of
That's
course,
how the name came
with the
about.
baseball metaphors in there and all those great stories. We're going to take a break here on the Steel Report. We'll come back and talk more with author and former school teacher and principal, Dave Welter. It's great to see you again, Dave, and we'll talk more about what's going on in his life and maybe yours too in just a moment. And welcome back to this week's edition of the Steel Report. My guest is a well-known educator and former coach here in the Cedar Valley, cancer survivor, author, Dave Welter. And Dave, your 4 books are out now, and this newest one, as I mentioned kind of at the beginning, Nearing Home. What does that mean right now in your life and the lives really of so many other people who have been battling cancer, continue to battle this terrible disease, and what's it mean for you personally? And the inspiration you already mentioned from the gentleman that you met at Mayo Clinic. So what's going on? Yeah.
Well, part of that, Ron, was not only that gentleman at Mayo Clinic, but I'm at the stage in my life, many of us are, where I say we're rounding third, headed for home. You know, at the age of 70, I've lost this past year 2 of my very closest friends. One passed away unexpectedly, another was kind of predetermined, but those are the things that get you thinking, am I doing the right things in my life right now as I do near home? The conversation with a gentleman up at Mayo Clinic made me think and ponder on that quite a bit. You know, am I doing the things in my life that the purpose I'm here for is being fulfilled? Am I caring for those that are important to me and those that I touch? It brings up many more questions than just facing death, which all of us at some point will. It's inevitable. But I think you have to set your mind in a place, in a positive place, thinking about that. And that's where my faith has helped me quite a bit. And those conversations I've had with those positive people over the years.
Well, it's great to hear that you've heard from many of your students and players over the years, and this battle does go back to what?
2009 is when I was diagnosed.
Yeah.
So I'm doing pretty well, you know, given where that was. You know, you're given a 50-50 chance of survival. And I got to be honest, when that diagnosis came in, I was with my wife at that point and my daughter, and I broke up into tears. I mean, it was just so heavy and emotional on my heart, and all the things that come into your mind, thinking, why me, why now? You know, what have I done to deserve this, on and on and on. And finally, I decided I was going to say, I'm turning this over to God, because you've got a plan for me. I don't know what that plan is right now, but I'm trusting you and the fact that you have a plan for me, and I'll do whatever I can to make it work. And I decided at that point, once I went through treatments and survived that, I said, God, you didn't save me from something, but I think you saved me for something. And what I'd been doing is writing my reflections as a way to process all of my feelings, turn that into my first book called Go the Distance. And since then, it's my way of dealing with those issues, and I'm hoping it's helping other people do the same.
Yeah, the questions come in our time, the answers come in God's time, and God's a pretty patient person.
Yes.
He doesn't solve
I'm glad he is.
problems overnight, yeah. But you've, like I mentioned earlier, having the support of your family, friends, former educators like you that have had such an impact, positive impact, on the lives of so many people. I mean, all of your students and your players. I just lost my high school baseball coach, Don Harden, from Wapello just a few weeks ago. And I think back of all the opportunities that he believed in me. And I know that you as a coach did the same thing to your players, yeah.
Absolutely. And, you know, those kids have grown up, and I was a junior high principal. And quite honestly, much of that is delayed gratification. You know, it takes a while.
They need to grow up a little,
I've met some kids in a gas station parking lot who came running up to me, and I'm thinking, oh no, here we go. And of course it was to say, I have to apologize for the way I treated you back in junior high. And, you know, they're such neat kids. And
well, remember, we had many, years ago, the Waterloo Community School District had a great program called the Turnaround Achievement Awards, and that's where we got a little closer than we might have, because you would always bring your students in who had basically turned their lives around from not doing so well to becoming honor roll students, and that was always a special event. That had to make you proud, though, that you had students that you could talk about and be proud of because they had changed their lives, because lives can be changed with a different kind of approach and a plan,
Ron, that was a highlight every year for me and for our students. Those kids typically were those type of kids who never got much encouragement. And to see them become successful, it meant so much to them, and it meant so much to me and my staff. You know, that was our goal.
What's ahead for you this is the first show of our new year, and it's such a great privilege for me to have you on as the first guest for 2025.
Thank you.
What are you thinking now?
Well, I wanted to share one of the thoughts that I've had. I just recently did a reflection on, and that is the Braves, of course, are my team. And we had a rough year this year. A lot of injuries, a lot of our top players. We had to find some other people to fill in roles. But you know, it came down to late September, bottom of the 9th inning, and a game against Kansas City that we had to win.
Darno hits it out to center field, and it's gone!
Travis d'Arnaud, one of my favorite players, our catcher, hit a walk-off home run to beat the Royals 2-1. And as he was rounding third, he had his fist in the air, just so excited, and he was running into a crowd at home plate of all the players, and it was a dog pile. He jumped in, they all jumped on him, and then it all cleared, and he was standing there by himself. And all I could think of is, when I have my walk-off in this life, I'll be rounding third with my fist up, and I'm going to be approaching home plate, and all of my friends and acquaintances that have gone before me are going to be there to greet me.
Another dog pile.
That's right, another dog pile. And when the dog pile clears, there will be our Lord and Savior there to give me a big hug. And honestly, when I think of nearing home that way, it gives me complete calm and peace. And having experienced the anxieties myself and watching others go through them, I hope and pray that these books, these words, these insights can help people come up with a similar thought of their own to bring them peace and comfort.
One of the things I like about your writing, Dave, is you always have these little metaphors, and one we're just talking about here, the resume, polishing that resume to get ready for that next job. It may seem like the most important thing in the world, but that's not really what it's all about. No?
No, and the gentleman I spoke with up at Mayo Clinic, you know, I thought, we're sitting here talking about facing death, and the thing that we didn't want to do was polish our resumes for people when that particular time comes. It was more about, have we cared as parents? Have we cared as husbands, as sons, daughters, for those people that we touch in our lives? That's really what we need to be focused on. And honestly, that's what I've left with as a thought, and that's something I'm going to continue to point out. I want to be remembered as a caring person.
Absolutely.
If that's it.
I want to bring this up too. You did a speech for Ron Avery, the Avery Foundation in Dubuque, early on when they had just started that foundation, which helps cancer survivors. We just had them on the Steel Report recently. They just surpassed their $500,000 mark of handing out grants, and I know that as an original speaker for the gala that they have every year, that played a big role in getting them going.
Yeah, and Ron is an amazing person. He's really dedicated his life to helping. And that's something, Ron, that I'm doing with my book series. My website's available, which I'm sure you'll fill that in, but every book purchased on my website, I make a donation to American Cancer Society and Relay for Life, as well as Hope Lodge. Those have been impactful in my life. And I just want people to know that's something that I'm very important to me in my life.
That's right. In fact, we've mentioned the Hope Lodge many times in our previous conversations. It played a big role in your life and continues to do so for so many families and going through cancer. Yeah.
You know, even when we were in COVID and they could not be open because of the COVID, they opened their facility to all the staff at the Iowa hospitals. And those staff could come in and stay there during the COVID period. They've just been so beneficial and helpful to so many people. Now they're back up and operating, and anything I can do to help them, I couldn't have done it without them, my family. I stayed there 12 weeks, and just an important part of my life.
All right. Well, Dave, thanks very much for coming on. I really appreciate it.
Thank you,
As
Ron.
always, best of luck at starting a new year. And again, the new book, we'll show all four of them here. I would certainly urge you to check them out because it's really quite a series, and I just love the theme, you know, reflections from the home team. It kind of fits you perfectly.
Thank you very much.
There's no doubt about that.
Appreciate it.
We're going to wrap things up here on the Steel Report in just a moment.